So today we will speak about sustainable fashion and well, not sustainable. You will hear that buzzword is not anymore there. So for this discussion, we have invited two amazing experts. Nina, she has actually 17 years of experience in fashion and sustainable textiles industry. She is, let me read it out, UN expert in transparency and circular economy, advisor, board member, lecturer, and founder of Circular Transparency and Donate Hour. So we couldn't imagine better expert in the field. And Reeta, who represents Spinnova. That's the company that actually used to be a startup, but the times have changed and it's not a startup anymore. And Reeta works there as a business development manager, and before she also worked as associate in McKinsey. So you know the business, right? And some words about sustainable textiles, fashion, so that you understand what kind of problems we are talking about here. So if we look at the environmental impact of the fashion industry, it ranks number 4 when we look at the water pollution and raw material. So textiles actually comes after housing, transport, and food. So the impacts are huge. At the same time, it also impacts climate change. There it ranks as a sector number 5 by the impact. So we have a tremendous concerns about this industry. So our main task is to make it more sustainable or circular. And the patterns of the consumption, they are also incrementally growing. By 2030, we will still use like more than 60% more than we are using now. So we need to rethink this industry. And I'll start with you, Nina. Could you please explain us why we are not using anymore this buzzword sustainable textiles? Why we are talking about something else than sustainable?
That's a great and important question, and I don't know if anyone can hear me. This is a interesting sensation, being in a crowded room with people with headset. So I think to start with, I need to just explain like the current model with the circular model. So basically the current model, and this is not limited to fashion, it is for basically everything we are producing and consuming product-wise. The way the system is built, that it's called the linear model. So we start with an idea, then we source the materials to actualize that idea and the product, and then we produce X amount of products from that specific one. We sell it, we use it, and within fashion that amount of year could be very short. The amount of times you use that garment could be everything from never to maybe 5 times. And when you're done with it, we throw away stuff, right? So it turns into trash. And that's kind of the linear model that we are currently in. And when we're talking about the circular as a disruptive option to it, it's basically saying that already at the design stage, you develop a product with the end in mind. So you need to create a product at the design stage in a way that when you're kind of done with it and no longer need it, it needs to be easy to be returned as a resource and looped back again so that it's being used again as a new product. And another important part of the whole circular economy is that before that loops back, you need to also make sure that the product in itself, as it is being used as many times as possible. And this you could do through like mending, which it's not a new thing. We used to do it back in the days. If your sock you got a hole in it, you kind of fixed it, right? You didn't throw it away. So mending is a part of it, like resell models, like selling peer-to-peer or business-to-business or business-to-customer, rental, etc. So you make sure that you design it for circularity, you prolongate the lifetime, and when you're no longer in need of that garment, you loop it back again as a resource. So that's kind of the difference between two. And sustainability, the word has been around for a while now, and it's kind of becoming redundant because there are very few measurements connected to it, right? So that's also leading to every company is setting up what the sustainability is for them, so it's not like comparable. So the sustainability part used to focus on the fact that you kind of looked into how you could make that linear model more sustainable, very much incremental innovation connected to it. Thank you. While the circular is very much more focusing on how can you make sure that that garment is going designed for circularity, lives long enough, and is being looped back again. And it's quite different type of way of looking at it.
So that's what we currently need. Reuse, recycle, repair. All those aspects need to be taken into account. And Reeta, after hearing this explanation about sustainability, circularity, and so on, you as an expert in this field, what are the main challenges as you see in the industry? What we still need to advance to be closer to this circularity?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a very interesting topic, and I look this from a material provider perspective. So as Nina said, repairing and reusing is super important, and I look at from the more angle of the last solution, which is the recycling of the material. But the key challenges of the industry, one is circular materials and lack of them. We will probably talk about that soon. But fashion brands are really kind of rethinking their mandate to exist, and they need circular materials. But there are not that good solutions yet out there. Number two, that is also linked to circular economy, is climate change. And textile fibers are known to be a big problem, causing loads of CO2 emissions in the textile industry. And we need low carbon solutions in addition to circular materials. Thirdly, not directly linked to circular economy, but I think what is a very terrible problem is microplastics. Microplastics are those small plastic particles that are released when we are washing our clothes made out of polyester or other synthetic materials, when we are washing them in our washing machines at our homes. And those microplastics are so small that we cannot actually see them. It's difficult to catch them, but the scientific research shows that it's accumulating in our drinking water, in our bodies,
and in blood as well.
Anything, yes, very true.
That was just a discovery.
And it's terrifying. I'm super afraid of those. But yeah, we need to also keep that in mind while looking at circular options. Two other things that are challenging, I think. One is lack of data, traceability and transparency. So brands might not know where do they source their cotton from. And for circular materials, circular solutions, we need data, I believe. Okay. And lastly, what is challenging as well is consumer behavior, because we have seen awareness of sustainable materials and challenges of the fashion industry. However, we also see at the same time people are not willing to pay premium for sustainable alternatives. We see a strong growth of hyper-fast fashion like Shein. So I think there's also some challenges over there. But I remain hopeful, because it's not only consumers that want to have the change, but I see that fashion brands are also willing to change by themselves. So
Nina, and from your as well very big experience in the business and fashion sector, to make this industry circular, what business, what are the main, like maybe 3 barriers that you see as the most fleshy ones? Is it, I don't know, machinery, investments, or?
It's not, let me count it up. I think it's more than 3. So I would say like a consumer and consumer behavior is one, because even if you shift towards the circular business model, it doesn't necessarily mean that the consumption is going down. I think that's important to know. It's just the process behind it. Currently, nothing is showing in the data that increase of circular business model is reducing consumption and CO2 emission. We keep on adding on top, basically. So the consumer part is one. The second one is investment and funding and money and kind of backing up new innovation and important innovation. The third one is innovation. There's huge, I can emphasize enough on this, need when it comes to innovation within this field. Because just to give you an example, when we're talking about recycling garments from like done garments into new material, it's less than 1% that is currently part of that kind of loop. And that's majority is because there's a lack of innovation, scaled innovation. We need like a supply chain and infrastructure in place that can kind of maintain and keep the garments in loop. Currently, a lot of it unfortunately ends up in fields in Africa and Chile. Legislations are another part. We need to really
like.
where we need to rethink, and that's coming with the EU Commission and the Green Deal, where this idea of what is waste needs to change and regulations need to be in place. So, and this is just a start. There are more.
Yeah. And as I mentioned before, Spinnova used to be a startup. And now when we imagine all those challenges that the industry is facing, let's imagine that we are the startups, and where would we should focus? What are the main questions that the startups can try to solve in this industry? Maybe you can give us some tips and tricks.
Well, at least like looking at from the solution point of view. So it's all about the consumer behavior and other topics, but looking at kind of technical solutions, there's so much to do. From the raw material side, there is new textile materials, new dye stuff, new finishing chemicals that fit to circular systems. We need innovation there. We need materials that are made out of waste. Like, for instance, at Spinnova, we can use kind of virgin raw materials like wood, but also, for instance, leather industry waste. So we are also solving the challenges of the very polluting industry at the same time, while providing new textile materials. But then there's also the whole recycling part, so recycling technologies, sorting technologies, etc. All these topics that I mentioned are very engineering intensive, needs loads of development, loads of capital in order to scale up. But there are also, I think, other solutions that are needed, like tools for transparency, traceability, different kind of marketplaces, and so on. What I think that startups should focus on is playing very well in their own specific process steps that they are focusing on. So not trying to solve end-to-end the problem, because value chains at fashion and textiles industry are very long and complex. So you need to find the right partners to play with. For Spinnova, that has been meant that we developed the textile fiber that is very sustainable and circular, but we source our raw materials through our supplier partners. So we cannot solve the whole industry by ourselves. So I would say that focusing on the one key area that you are really good at, it's the key to have a solution that works.
And for you, Nina, what would you advise? Like, what problem, if you were a startup, what problem would you solve?
There's so many of them, but I would definitely like start by really understanding the problem itself, and like looking at the current system and see, okay, what are the challenges and where do I think I can bring the solution to the table. It's always like knowing the problem and knowing the customer that is important. The customer part or the user part is super important. Sometimes I meet a lot of startups that are kind of intrigued by their own idea so much, and they run with it, and when it's time to actually use it, it's not that feasible. So that's also really important. But I mean, I can't pick one, sorry, but so okay, I can pick one. If someone could come up with, because this is actually, I find it the challenging one, the culture shift connected to how we look at products, the whole approach to consumerism and how we treat the garments and how we value the garments. If someone could come up with a great innovation that could solve that, that would be fantastic. I can just give you an example. Like,
Sure.
Even today, our approach towards fashion is very much newness, right? You keep on like striving for this kind of new. When you wear a garment to a party, you can't wear it next time. And you can see it with influencers, you can see it with Gen Z, etc. And it's just by pushing and pushing, and people try to like keep it up with secondhand, but that's still the same behavior, right? So that's kind of why I'm trying to make a thing out of wearing the same outfit as many like like these kind of events as possible, to just kind of showcase that you can choose your kind of superhero outfit. Superhero don't change the like outfit that often. They just stick to one, and that's them. And if we could just shift that approach towards fashion and what looks good on you, and if someone can help me with that, that would be great.
But do you think like all those swap apps, secondhand, is it here to stay? This niche?
Yeah, I think that it's going to stay, and I know it's used very much as a kind of sustainability approach, but it's a business opportunity and growth opportunity within secondhand, rental, all these new models. But then within themselves, there is a sustainability angle to it, since you don't necessarily create the garment from scratch, and that's where the majority of like CO2 and water consumption is.
Sure.
But unfortunately, we add on that, and we add on the linear right now. So like it doesn't replace the old model.
Yeah. I wonder what's the contribution to this sustainability topic of all those applications, web apps, and like how much do they really contribute to the good of the planet, so that we stay within our planetary borders?
Yeah, I could add that the all kind of reusing and swapping and other stuff, it's not solving the root problem. So people wanting to consume more and more. So yeah, very shortly saying, it's a great part of the solution, but it's not solving the root problem.
Sure. And if we talk about materials, one of you mentioned that there is shortage of sustainable, like reliable and good materials. Again, let's imagine from the perspective of the startups, and maybe you can give some hints, like what are those materials we should focus on, and what are the ones like, Jesus, forget about them, they are creating the microplastic pollution. And
well, I can start, and Nina, please continue then. I believe that we need new, innovative, more sustainable and circular materials. The major materials today, cotton and polyester, are fundamentally not sustainable and not circular.
So you want to say that if I'm always looking for the organic cotton, I won't save the planet, right?
You will. Let's say that you cannot save that at scale. So it's only limited. So I would say no, we need more materials. And for instance, many of you probably have heard about recycled polyester. I have also bought some recycled polyester thinking that this is great. I'm being more sustainable. Today, recycled polyester is made out of PET bottles, so plastic bottles that could have been recycled again from bottle to bottle. But however, garments cannot be recycled today. So this means that we take some material from an existing flow of materials, to a garment that we use, let's say, 3 times, hopefully more, but unfortunately average use per garment is not that high. And we take that, then we dump that. We cannot recycle it today because there's no technology to do that. So, and then we are kind of celebrating that, oh, we have this great recycled polyester, but it's not yet fully circular. It's kind of a good start, but we cannot settle for that. We need better solutions, I think.
Sure. That was the topic I just discovered recently, that PET bottles are not good for your hoodie or for your pants, because in such a way you are stopping the packaging industry to innovate in their packaging
Indeed.
problems.
And there's also the microplastics problem. So yeah.
Nina, do you want something to add on from your perspective?
I agree with what you just said, and looking into material, if people are looking into innovation again, if we could just figure out how to utilize all these piles and piles of waste. We call it waste, but like 80% of the garments, if you would just pick them up and wash it, you could use them, that are in these deserts in Chile and Africa, and could kind of find a new way of reusing them. That would do a hell of a lot for the environment, I could say.
And what about those? Because in the recently published EU strategy for textiles, they are mentioning like digital solutions, like digital passports. How does it work for textiles?
Well, it's a good question. So,
or eco-design or recyclability. So all those parameters we need.
Also, everything that is being talked about within EU, basically. I can start with a digital passport. This is very much connected to what you mentioned with the data, need for data, lack of data. So one of the challenges within the fashion industry is, one is that the whole supply chain is extremely scattered. There are so many small players that are dependent to each other, and the supply chain itself is quite opaque. On top of it, you also have this approach of mixing up different materials, right? And chemicals, etc. So one part of it, when it looked at data and traceability and transparency, is to actually be able to see down the supply chain to kind of make sure that human rights are not being violated, etc. That the companies and suppliers and countries are taking their responsibility. But then there's another part which is basically at the point of when I told you, when the garment is no longer needed, where you collect the garments and you bring it back to sorting facilities, for instance, that work is done manually today. So there are people picking up each and every garment, looking at it, guessing what material it is in them, based on like, oh, this is denim, and because they're great, they have a massive experience, they're like, there is no elastane in it. So elastane is like a fiber, stretch fiber. So that's how it's done. But so the idea is like, imagine if we could automate that with help of data. So imagine if each and every product had a tag on them that could live alongside of the product itself. Another challenge where we need innovation, because RFID and NFC and QR codes don't do that today. If that could be the option, and the sorters could just scan the garments and know, okay, this is cotton, this is polyester mix, this is that. But also for you, when you receive it, to actually know, okay, what's exactly in this garment, so I can recycle it in a good way, so I don't risk my whole kind of process of damaging it by mixing in polyester or whatnot. But also a reseller. It creates a massive efficiency, connect the products. It's really loud in here. Massive efficiency in the process of just being able to scan it and uploading the garment instead of kind of crunching it for each and every garment. It would make the industry much more efficient, basically.
And do you already?
Sorry, I kind of lose
one more?
the origin of the question. So that's what the whole idea with the EU Commission is, with digital product passport, to enabling exactly that. how can we create the infrastructure digitally, harmonizing, sharing and collecting relevant data for different partners.
And is it already happening in the industry? Do you see the light in the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Yes.
But is it fast enough? I don't know. But this is where regulations and policies become important because, I mean, what EU is basically saying, this is coming, and sometimes 2026 and 2027, if you're not living up to it, you need to pay for it. And it's pushing it for all EU, right? So then people start like waking up and looking into it.
So we can start waving bye-bye to fast fashion, right?
I mean, should I take that?
That there will be some question to Reeta as well.
So here's, I think it's important for me to mention this because there is this idea that fast fashion is the main problem, you know what I mean? And because something is premium, that is like great and it's sustainable, etc. And that's just not true. A lot of times small, very high-end brands have much less control over their supply chain when it comes to human rights and how water is being treated, etc. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's fast fashion or not, and this or not. But going back to, will we be able to shift consumer mindsets to kind of have a different approach to how we use the garments and buy the garments?
And what about startups? Do you think they can solve this consumer behavior problems? Can they step in and maybe investigate, research something, come with an idea how to change our minds?
That's a very interesting and difficult question because I believe that people have this need to express themselves through fashion, through how we use clothes. That we have been doing that for hundreds of years. Everyone wants to kind of express themselves. So I think fashion is needed. I think new things like metaverse, NFTs, that's a very interesting area to explore fashion and how to express yourself. However, I think that doesn't really fix the physical problem that we have, that we need clothes. Everyone is wearing clothes here, and sometimes we need new ones. So how to make that consumer behavior change, I don't know, but at least I know that we need more consumer education. So we need to tell people how to wear, how to take care of their clothes, and how to kind of give another life for the garments.
Good. So I think our discussion is coming to the end, and bearing in mind that we have a lot of startups here, creative minds, and maybe we can wrap up our discussion, and maybe I will ask each of you like the main topics where they have to focus on to solve this problem and make fashion industry more circular. 2, 3, start.
Okay. Learnings from Spinnova. One is to really partner with the right players. For us, it has been playing with the leading fashion brands since the beginning, so we can really help their needs and help where they kind of find solutions that fit their needs. Another thing that is, I think, very important is trust. We believe that trust is our currency, and we have been very open about our challenges as well. So we are not perfect, so we can actually co-develop our solutions to make it happen. But I would say that there are so many exciting opportunities in this area that
Hell of work.
I hope to see more innovations coming here and more startups.
Nina,
my advice is saying you could look in any area and find a solution. But my advice would be to really bring in that whole diverse mindset into the table, into your teams when you're going into these solutions, because that's when the magic happens. It's not going to be fun. It's going to go slower, but make sure to bring in different perspective in your team when so first identify the problem, or even before you do that, set up a team that is so different from you as possible, to make sure that you kind of grasp the complexity of the problem, because that's what it is. It's a wicked problem. It's really complex. And the more different perspective you have around the table, that would be the most beneficial, I would say.
Amazing.
Great. So I say thanks to all the listeners, and let's live within planetary boundaries and respect this nature and
Thank
planet.
you for the magic, girls. It was really amazing to hear all of your perspectives.
Thank you.